Mm. So, welcome everybody to day 6 of Develop Your Divine Channel. Today, we are so blessed to have Allison here with us. Allison studied with me years ago. I think maybe many years ago. And she is now someone who I go to for sessions because she is so incredibly gifted and psychic. She has in sessions offered me insights into what's to come in ways where I'm like, I'm really curious how this is going to manifest, what it is that she's sharing in an Akashic session with me. And then it has happened, like exactly how she has predicted it. It has really blown my mind. This woman is so psychically tuned in. So I am very excited to have her here with us today. And before we dive in with you, Allison, I'm just going to share a few announcements with everybody. So the first one is that I'm offering a scholarship opportunity for anybody who wants to join Akashic Metamorphosis. That is my 8-month online training where you develop your divine channel, you learn how to access and channel the Akashic records, and you also learn how to utilize your divine channel for personal healing, as well as sessions with others, how to develop your spiritual business, how to create healing within your relationships, how to create fulfilling relationships, how to create prosperity, how to live your dharma. We dive into many different topics. We have 8 entire months together in that training. And there's a scholarship opportunity. If you check your emails, you'll see it. Essentially, you submit a video as to why you're feeling called to Akashic Metamorphosis. And then Spirit is going to choose someone for a really big scholarship. So that's one announcement. And then the other one is to enter a giveaway to win a 30-minute Akashic one-on-one session with me. Normally, my 30-minute sessions are $250. So it has a $250 value. And all you have to do to enter to win is share about your takeaways. Like, what is it that you've received from this immersion? Share it on social media and tag me, or send me a testimonial through email. What has this been like for you? What have been your greatest takeaways? I would love to know. And then I will enter you into that. Welcome, Allison. Thank you for being here with us. I'm going to.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Beautiful to be here with you.
Yeah, there we go. So, do you want to share with us first an introduction to yourself around, well, how you came into sharing intuitive readings and sharing psychic readings and doing your healings, and maybe share with us more around that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so, since I was young, which I really think is the case for so many of us, I was really tuned into spirit in a deep way. Some people had, imaginary friends. I actually had an imaginary mom who I would get a lot of insights from and support my mother when I was growing up because her mom died when she was 13, so she didn't really have a lot of insights into being a mother. So I really tuned into spirit and was able to kind of channel another mother to help support me. However, as is the case also with many people who have gifts early on, I was really not seen in a bright light from my family and society. I remember even as a teenager, I was really tuned in to what other people were thinking. And one of my dear friends got really upset with me because she said, "You always say what I'm going to say. It's like you're reading my mind." And yeah, so it's been a long journey since then to kind of come from a place where we're sensing from fear and needing to know for survival to being able to sense really deeply from my heart and see truth with a capital T is what I like to call it when we see really like divine truth. And so years ago, I took Daniela's Akashic Metamorphosis training, and it really helped me to understand that, like intuition is something that we all really have and that we're all blessed with. And a big part of being able to be a divine channel is actually the frequency that we can be at and that we can open ourselves from. And working with Daniela and the Akashic Metamorphosis really gave me a lot of confidence in where I was coming from when I was sensing, and also how to stay in that state more in my daily life, and to really start to tune into my intuition on a regular basis instead of just when I really needed it, or as kind of a way to sense dangers. And so that was years ago. And in the past, probably 4 years or so, I've been giving one-to-one sessions with clients. I also do a type of energy healing called vortex healing, which I really love. And yeah, and my journey really started and solidified with Daniela's training. So I definitely second what she said earlier, that if you do feel called to work on your own channel, remember that we all have that insight, and actually some people like myself who were really tuned in when we were young, that can actually also be a block, because a lot of people like that actually are tuning in from fear or from different like lower emotions. So whatever stage you're at, it's totally possible to open your intuition and your channel and to receive guidance. And ultimately, that's part of our spiritual journey of evolution, is really being able to like determine truth for ourselves, right? And to really feel into our heart. And it really benefits our lives in such a big way that instead of kind of haphazardly making decisions or choosing from the mind, we're able to really drop into our heart space and choose truth from there, and support the people in our lives, like our family and friends as well.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you, Allison. It's so adorable to think of you as a child channeling a mother. It's so cute. And I love the way that channeling opens up so much possibility for us. It opens up our multidimensionality so that we're not stuck in one, like being one limited way or one limited identity, one limited personality. I know that in the opening of my channel, I have been able to channel new ways of being. Like I was always very insecure and had very low self-worth my entire life. And I feel like as I developed my channel, I was able to channel confidence. And I have this one friend that is like so confident, and she's such a brilliant public speaker. And whenever I get nervous, I feel like I can channel her, like I can tune into her ways and then like start to bring that through. And it truly is a practice that serves us in so many different ways. So a few questions came up for me when you were speaking. And well, I'll start with one. What is vortex healing and how does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, vortex healing is a type of divine energy associated with Merlin. And so, Merlin's often thought of as, a wizard, but really it's a divine flavor of energy that has been around for some time. It's kind of come above ground and gone below at different periods. But really, it's the energy of awakening and healing. And so, really, like wellness has a lot to do with being able to resonate at certain frequencies in our body, in our lives, how we hold ourselves, and that our physical health actually follows those frequencies. And so, Vortex really helps us to shift different issues, as Daniela was speaking about, like lower self confidence, or even, even physical issues Vortex can really assist with. Because, for example, if we haven't eaten well for years of our lives, then maybe our stomach lining is inflamed. And then vortex actually can help lower inflammation. So it's a really interesting healing path that works with both emotional issues and physical issues. And actually, the trainings themselves are an awakening process. So some people take the trainings for the awakening movements, and some people take the trainings to share with others. But it's been a really valuable path for me. You know, sometimes I like to explain it as Reiki, but times like 10. But of course, it depends on the person channeling Reiki. Some people are very attuned to that channel. And, you know, with healing, there's no right or wrong path. It's really what resonates with you. And so for me, the playful, divine energy of Merlin and vortex healing and the awakening towards non duality is really resonated with me.
So many different ways in which we can all work with our spiritual gifts. Something that I've noticed I experience you as very masterful at, Allison. I've done many sessions for those of you who are just joining. I've done many sessions with Allison where I've received from her. Is I feel like you're really good at supporting state shifts. And something that I've personally experienced through developing my channel, my access to the Akashic records, and my relationship to the divine is that a lot of well, I'll speak to me. A lot of my human suffering is like in some way self created and self perpetuated. It has felt to me like times of grief, times of sadness, even experiences like anger. They're part of the human experience. And no matter how much I develop my divine channel, it feels like I'm just never going to transcend them. I'm still going to experience them. But through the development of these spiritual gifts, it feels like I don't take them as seriously. I'm able to be in moments of sadness or grief and pain and simultaneously experience unconditional love, be able to embrace whatever I'm experiencing with a sense of peace. Know that in the midst of like my despair and crying and however that's being expressed, I'm okay. And I've noticed that through the development of my channel, these states don't last. Like, something can happen that's really triggering, and I can be in that for like an hour or two in the morning. And then by the afternoon, just be in this ecstatic state of like play and joy. And that was not the case for me before I began accessing and channeling the Akashic records. So I'm curious what it's like for you. I'm curious for you in your personal life, those state shifts, and also how you facilitate them through your work with your clients. Because I know that when I'm in like my contraction and I've got those more like limiting stories moving through my mind, if I bring them to you, they're going to shift fast.
Oh, yeah. It's so important to be able to be flexible, you know, and I really think that opening your channel and being able to tune into higher frequency energy can really help you be flexible in life. You know, they say in yoga that you're as old as your spine is flexible. And I would really say, in like as you wake up, the more awake you become, the more flexible you can become in terms of experiencing different states. You know, a lot of people think like, oh, I want to wake up and I want to become spiritual because then I won't suffer anymore. And are we just feeling amazing all the time? You know, why do I have these moments where I feel so down or I'm suffering from, you know, what's happening around the world? How can you just live in a state of peace and bliss all the time? And the truth is, as Daniela mentioned, that even as we go through our growth, there's still ups and downs. There's still moments of challenge, but it's being able to see them from a bit of a distance, being able to unravel those stories that are starting to lock in. And so I also like to refer to them as kind of like the tectonic plates of our reality, like our unconscious, in the way that we have these different holding patterns. And so in my sessions, I first of all invite you into a higher frequency, which is also the Akashic records, right? It's such a beautiful space with a high frequency. And from that space, when we look at our life again, we can start to see the truth with a capital T beyond the illusion of whatever suffering we're going through on the ego level. One way that I like to look at it is that we have certain karmas that we're unwinding in this life, right? And nobody knows for certain. Many people express that they know exactly what's happening here. And that can be helpful for a time if it feels resonant for you. Everyone likes to know what's exactly happening. But one thing I like to feel in and tune into is that there's things that we're here, that we're ready to show up for in this life, and we're ready to untangle. There's karmas that are going to happen because on a soul level, we are choosing them to untangle in this life. And so, as a result, we can't just sidestep intensity. There's no way that we're going to get around having intense experiences. But what we can do is really center in ourselves, in our heart, and not let them stick, not let them become glue, not let them become a part of our personality, not let them become something that takes over us and makes us have a terrible day. Right? And instead, being able to look at them as a sensation, as an experience. This is a sensational life, is a term that I like to use when things get intense. How sensational is it today? And sometimes it's really sensational. We're in the middle of an eclipse right now. A lot of wild things are happening. And, so in my sessions, I love to kind of get curious and look at these things and kind of peer behind and then start inviting you into seeing the sensation behind it and to really feeling what's happening, and also opening to the possibility that this is a gift, right? That whatever is happening to you, instead of being something that is so challenging, we can realize it's sensational, and the sensation might be uncomfortable, but behind that is a gift. And and especially if it's something that's reoccurring, we can say like, oh, this is always happening to me, but actually if we look behind that, it's happening again because it's a chance to let it go, and it's a chance to respond differently. So in my sessions, with my gifts of tuning into Divine Channel, I can really help you look beyond what you're stuck in. And this is why we need each other, right? We can work on developing our own channel, and sometimes we need to call in someone else to give us a reflection. And in doing that reflection, we can kind of move past what's behind it, start tuning into what the gift of that is, and therefore lifting the frequency in your system. And as you lift your frequencies, you can feel like the frequency in the call is lifting. So I'm waking up and channeling this energy. Then from behind that, we're like, oh, okay, like how can I work with this gift instead of be stuck in it and choose an ongoing pattern?
Brilliant. Yes, our channels always reveal how everything is a gift, and they teach us how to work with it instead of resist it, which is, I feel, a very common way that humanity relates to uncomfortable feelings and like really big sensation, which is such an inherent part of this experience here. I know that before I started channeling, before I started developing my spiritual gifts, I was actually really ungrounded. And I think that I was really ungrounded because the big sensations, the big experiences were so uncomfortable for me because I would judge them, I would resist them, and I didn't have access to this continuous, infinite stream of love, of peace, and of acceptance, which only God can provide, which only our relationship with divinity can provide. So these big sensations were like all consuming. It was just like too much. And then I was resisting it so much so that when I was younger, I developed a drug addiction. I was addicted to opiates. I had a lot of big challenges. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I was put on pharmaceutical drugs. Like, there's a lot. It's just really difficult to navigate this human experience without access to a higher perspective. And I feel like we can develop the tools and like we know they're there. And then sometimes it is so nice to just have like a friend, a practitioner, someone who knows you and loves you, like I have with you, Allison, to just like lift you right up into a higher perspective and like receive that support and that love and that beautiful reflection in those moments of contraction and of challenge, knowing that we all move through these experiences no matter how much we develop our spiritual gifts, and our spiritual gifts help us move through them with ever more grace. Yeah, and there was one more thing that was coming up for me when you were sharing was around the flexibility. Like as we develop our channels, we become more flexible. And I started reflecting on how much more flexible I became in the sense that when we develop our channels, what we're developing is our capacity to come into an elevated, like a higher perspective, an elevated state of consciousness. And it encompasses more perspectives and more ways. So this could manifest in many different ways for you. One way it has manifested for me is that I no longer feel like I'm stuck in one identity or one personality. And a way this has played out recently was I went to Costa Rica for Envision Festival, a huge festival, and I've been living in the Andes Mountains in silence and solitude and quiet, very introverted. But I was able to like release that identity and come into the personality of someone who's more extroverted, who's like socializing all the time, who's staying up till 4 a.m., who's like dancing and connecting with people, even though that's not who I've been, that's not how I was naturally feeling, but it was like I was able to channel a new personality, a new way of being so that I can enjoy that experience. And then another way it has shown up for me in my life is like a deep reverence and appreciation for all the spiritual practices and really finally understanding them. My father is a devout Catholic. And when I was young, I didn't experience a resonance with the teachings of Catholicism. So at a very young age, I told my parents, I don't want to go. I was going to like a Catholic school after school. And I told them, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be confirmed in the faith. This doesn't resonate. And as I developed my channel, I really grew to appreciate my father's religion. And now I can go to church with him and I can enjoy it and I can read the Bible and I can interpret it in a way where I'm receiving what serves and not having any judgment or resistance to what doesn't. Just letting it flow through. It's okay. It's not for me. If it's for someone else, then it must be serving them in some way. So I really love the way in which this expansion of our consciousness through the development of our channel allows for more acceptance of all so that we can receive the gifts inherent within all instead of judging or resisting. So, do you mind if I jump somewhere else, Allison? Okay, so Allison is like very psychically gifted. And I want to preface this by saying everyone's spiritual gifts are radically different. She is very psychic and very accurate in her psychic awareness. And I would love to ask you, like, when you're doing sessions for me and you're tuning into this psychic stream of awareness, how does it come to you? How do you receive it? How do you know?
Fun question. Yeah, so everyone definitely perceives the world differently. And for me, it's really visual. And it's interesting because I've worked with different people and they've said, "Oh, I wish I could be visual. I'm more auditory or more sensory." And, there's no hierarchy in sensing. The truth is that, some people can be very accurate from a body sensation or, from even just a truth, a deeper truth of knowing. But for me, it's interesting because it usually comes through in images. And so, as I mentioned before, even though I can be quite tuned in to the exact details, it's also really important like what layers we have in front of us. So when I was younger, I could tune into exact details, but when I looked at a situation, I was always looking at the negativity. So when I tuned into like a room or a situation, I could see the threats, And so many people that identify as empaths are actually also people that grew up in a chaotic environment as children, and therefore they're tuning in from a sense of fear and looking out for how to protect themselves. And so you might notice that also sometimes it might be easier to stay at home and stay introverted because we don't want to deal with the low frequencies out there. But actually part of that is because we're tuning in to the low frequencies to buffer ourselves. And so the process that I actually really learned with Daniela was actually first raising my frequency, right? And when you first raise your frequency, and it's something that takes practice, but that's why it's an 8-month course that she's offering and not just one call. But over time, you start really getting into the habit of raising your frequency. And then from that space, you can really tune into truth. And the gecko here agrees. Sometimes they make sounds like that when there's something really high frequencies being said. Happened a couple of times while Daniela was speaking as well when I was muted. But anyway, so for me, when I open my channel, and I first have to really take that moment to raise my frequency, because otherwise I'll be in my mind or I'll be tuning in from a place of fear. And while there might be some truth in that, it's not really the truth I'm looking for, right? So as I raise my frequency and then tune in, I wait. That's the other step. Because sometimes our mind has ideas, but when we're truly in a high frequency, it can take a moment to receive. And we're so used to just everything being so quick and going like, well, if I don't know immediately, then what is it? But usually if I take a moment to wait, then I see an image. Or what I've realized is that I'm receiving information, and because I'm a visual person and I like doing art as well, I receive the information in terms of a visual. And then I try to translate that into words. So sometimes I see potentialities, right? Because another big lesson that I learned through my journey was that once I learned to see like high frequency things, then I was like, oh, great. Like I can see the highest timeline. That's the timeline that's going to happen. And I would actually I went the opposite way. Instead of seeing like a low frequency possibility, I would see only the highest. And that led me into all kinds of trouble on the other side, because I really believed people that weren't centered in their hearts, right? I could see their potential. And so I just actually even invested like $20,000, like all my savings, into this elixir bar at some point years ago. I think this is about 6 years ago. And because I could see the potential of their vision. When I tuned in with Spirit showed me this could happen if you did it with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be part of that. That's beautiful. But as I've gained more experience over the years, and grounded myself a bit, instead of always being in just the whew, it's all love and light, right? Actually feeling life in the totality, feeling the earth, as well as being in that high frequency, I've been able to see actually multiple dimensions, which really translate into multiple timelines. So when I work with people, I often see like, oh, well, this is a possibility, and then there's actually other possibilities that are true too. And so I can also see those. But what's helpful is over the years, I've been able to actually tune in deeper and deeper to be able to see what could happen. Like how I call it is like choice points. There's choice points along the way, right? Because we have these different potential timelines, and it's almost like when we're born, we have a certain number of karmas we need to fulfill. We have soul contracts we need to fulfill. We have this like list of possible like variables that we can't change. And then there are like trajectories that we can choose that will cover all of those points, right? And so depending how quickly we wake up, what kind of choices we make, are we in reactivity a lot, or are we kind of recentering and like, okay, I got through that one. Whew, that was a potent learning. I'm not sure what to even call that in, right? But I'm ready to go. So we'll kind of recenter and then realign, and then different potentials can end from there. And I've seen with people that I worked with over time, for example, that sometimes I'll see something for them, but they're not ready yet, right? And again, in the past, that used to be so hard for me. I'm like, can't you see, like, this is not the right person for you, or this is not the right decision? And then my guides, when I tuned in deeper, instead of coming from my ego desire to help them, coming from my heart and channel desire to speak a truth that they'll be ready to receive, I could see, okay, like I can invite that as a possibility, but maybe the person isn't ready for that now, and that's okay. Because maybe there's more lessons that they can get from this experience, right? Because it's sensational. It's not just something good or bad. And so as we really tune into those experiences and get the most out of it, then at some point we can choose these different trajectories. So a little rambly, but basically overall, what I do is really raise my frequency and then tune into the information, and then also ask for the layers of possibility there, and trust that the person, when you really believe in someone, you believe that they're going to go through the experiences that they need, right? And so as you can start offering suggestions or seeing possibilities and inviting to them, well, how would it feel for this? Then people can really also see what aligns for them in their heart and how they want to move forward. Because ultimately there are choices involved as well, right? There is a choice. I believe, some people think everything's already predestined, and I think it is in a way, like as I mentioned, but also there is a choice of how you want to experience it. And just like the same thing that maybe you have to go through some kind of karmic situation, but you can choose how you experience it. You can be like, oh my God, this is going to drag me down into a 6-month depression. And, I'm going to focus on all of the negative things in my life. Or you're going to make the choice to experience it in a different way of being like, wow, that was really intense, but I'm so grateful. And when we usually dive straight into it, and this is like somatic healing, right, too, which I also bring into my sessions, is like, where do you feel that in your body, and being able to breathe into that space and start to shift your frequency from there. Then these different possible timelines can actually emerge as truths that we can follow.
I feel like that was an eclipse portal transmission. Like we all needed to hear that. And Farah, while you were speaking, says, wow, beautiful, so needed, so wise. Ooh, Lisa is asking, what do you do to raise your frequency?
Yeah, good question. And for each person, it's a little bit different. But one of the things I really recommend is making a daily practice. So again, if you're a little unsure about raising your frequency, then Daniela's course is perfect, because what she does over 8 months is invite you into different practices. You have community to reflect with, right? And all this time to practice raising your frequency. But basically, you can start choosing a lifestyle that supports it, right? Which generally means, how do you start your morning? So, for example, even today, here in Bali, the sun is just rising. So it's been pretty early for me, but I still chose to get up an hour and a half before this call because I have a morning practice that's really important to me. So how we start the day can really make raising our frequency easier. It's funny, I saw a reel recently of an Ayurvedic doctor, and she was talking about how we shouldn't eat sugar first thing in the morning, because then all day long our body craves sugar. And I immediately was like, huh. And it was interesting to me, but what was more interesting to me was I was thinking about like, oh yeah, it's just like frequency, kind of on the opposite side of what you shouldn't do, but more of like what you can do, is that if you raise your frequency in the morning, then it's way easier to continue to access it during the day. Whereas if you wake up in the day and you're feeling down and you're in a rush and you need to just go do the things, you're starting at a really low level, then it's like, oh, it's so hard to get your system into high frequency. Whereas first thing in the morning, we are really fresh. So even just giving yourself an extra 30 minutes in sitting, and, again, for each person it's different. For some people, it's like, doing a few minutes of breath work or Kundalini yoga, or, just meditating and coming to your center. For me, I personally love tuning in. I make my matcha, which also I love matcha because it takes about an hour to kick in. So it's also really great in the mornings because it doesn't just jolt me like coffee does. For a long time, I worked with coffee. And although every once in a while I indulge, I actually really prefer matcha because all of these things are little choices, right? That help us stay with our higher frequency. And matcha, with its slow period of coming on, actually allows our body to more naturally wake up. And so I sit and drink my matcha, and then as I'm drinking my matcha, I meditate. And then for me, a practice that has really worked for me is I imagine like an orb of light coming from the earth. So actually we can, if it's okay with you, Daniela, maybe we can do this practice all together really quick. So if you feel like joining, I invite you to take a moment to close your eyes and sit in kind of more of a straight posture so when we have our spine straight, it actually really allows our energy to flow in a better way, which is why everyone tells you to sit up straight. So start by closing your eyes. Take a couple deep breaths. So whenever we start something, it's great to start with a couple deep breaths to just clear the air. It also gives our body a reminder that we're starting something different. Great. And then begin to imagine in your mind's eye an orb of light deep in the earth. So as you feel this orb of light, feel also Mother Gaia, Mama Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever you love to call the beautiful being that supports and loves us all. Imagine her energy supporting this orb of light. So the earth can really be felt as unconditional love, the Divine Mother that supports us through everything. The earth is always here for us, always providing for us, giving us shelter, food, comfort, magic, beauty, flowers. Everything we receive in this life really starts and begins with this unconditional love. So first I start with this unconditional love from Mother Gaia, and I imagine her infusing this orb of light with that unconditional grounded love, reminding myself that I'm safe, I am so held, I'm so invited to be here, that even if I feel in moments that nobody else wants me here, the earth wants me here and is choosing to support me. And so I just start imagining that energy entering into my orb and feeling grounded and secure, loved. And then I come to the realization that I am earth, that I am also a part of earth, that this physical body, that this temple that I inhabit is a part of earth too. So as I infuse my own energy of security and unconditional love for myself into that orb of light, I thank Mother Earth for reminding me of who I am. So take a moment to feel that. And then slowly imagine this orb of light coming from deep into the earth, into the base of your spine. And so sometimes here I do a couple more deep breaths, just moving any stagnant energy. And usually as it's first thing in the morning for me, it's kind of like maybe releasing any dreams or lower frequencies from the night, or any kind of thoughts that came into my mind when I first woke up of worries or concerns. But for you today, you can also kind of tune into your day for a moment, just in a way to let it go, not to get stuck in the stories, but just finding some gratitude. So in my root, I like to feel gratitude for how safe I am and count my blessings on this planet that I've been given in this life. You know, most of us here probably have citizenship in a country with some levels of freedom, where we have enough food to eat, we have shelter over our heads, we have our needs taken care of enough that we can even start imagining and practicing spirituality. We're not living from moment to moment in fear and starvation. We have friends around us who love and care for us, that check in with us. We even have a smart supercomputer that we take with us everywhere. It has infinite wisdom and knowledge that we can access in every moment. So whatever it is that really helps you feel grateful, that maybe you take for granted, I usually tune into this in the root chakra. So I feel that rootedness of gratitude in the gifts that I have been given every day. So then I take a moment to infuse that energy into my ball of light and into my root, kind of back and forth. And then I allow that ball to move up to my sacral. In my sacral, I tune into gratitude for my creativity, and so my creation of my ability to create in this life. So even if you don't consider yourself that creative, actually you are, by even just choosing what you eat every day. It's an amazing sense of creativity. By choosing what clothes you adorn yourself with, by choosing where you want to live. There's so much creativity in our lives. And so I just really thank myself again. Really raising our frequency has a lot to do with being grateful for the things that we take for granted, because there's so many of them, and it's so beautiful to really honor them. So yeah, really feeling the gratitude in my, oh, it feels so nice. It's hard to talk. So feeling that going back and forth between the sacral and this ball of light. And then feeling that ball of light moving up into the solar plexus. And then in solar plexus, I really tune into my personal power. So again, there's a lot of gratitude there that relates to things that we take for granted, that we have power and control over. I'm not a slave in this life. I have freedom of choice. I can work wherever I want. I can work however I want. I can choose who I want to be friends with. I can choose who I want to surround myself with. I can choose the environments I put myself in. Oh, I'm so grateful for all this personal power. Just feeling this orb of light, infusing it with that gratitude and feeling it infuse you as well. Any sighs that need to come out of this stage. So you feel solar plexus raising in frequency. And then I move that orb of light up into my heart space. And then I really feel that beautiful heart of mine. And this is a chance where you can really tune into that self-love of just really appreciating yourself. I mean, even being here right now is just an act of incredible self-love. You are such a divine, beautiful human being. You're such a beautiful soul that chose to have this human experience. You're so beautiful. You're so wonderful. You're so kind. You're so generous. Everyone here, I can just really feel how much you care. I can feel the deep care in your hearts for this world, and how sensitive you are and how affected you are by life because you care. So just really inviting you to honor yourself and feel that self-love. Even if you don't feel like you're as whatever as you could be, the fact that you're even considering that you could be better is amazing and beautiful. So just really feeling that really soak into your heart and let your heart expand with that love. Great. Any sighs here. Maybe moving your shoulders, neck a little bit. For me, I'm like, ooh, feel a little tightness releasing. And then inviting that ball of light to move up into your throat chakra. And then here, it's a really the way we interact with the world, the way we speak to the world. So starting with our thoughts and how they speak out into the world, right? So feeling grateful for our opportunity for free speech, for the opportunity to be able to speak from our heart. So as we keep our ball aligned here, just really feeling into the moments when we choose silence. Maybe we feel like for a lot of you here, maybe there's some more moments where we can speak from our heart. Maybe the world wants to hear you more. I feel an invitation coming from your higher selves of like, yes, more, share more. You're so invited. And feeling this ball of light really working with your throat chakra to also release old patterns, maybe releasing patterns of sharing too much or having friends where you're just unloading rather than actually the focus of the connection be more towards shifting out and raising into a higher frequency. Whatever it is, just feel that love of the divine pouring into you. And feel that throat chakra ready to share with the world, invited, loved, cared for, attuned to your heart, bathed in love. Nice eyes. I want to move through here. And then raising it up to your third eye. And as we tune in here, I'm feeling some support from some ascended masters as well, of your guides. And as we're here for a moment, just invite you to tune in to who you're receiving support from, because actually everyone is receiving support, whether you can tune in exactly to who it is or not. There's so much love pouring into your third eye right now. One of the ascended masters I work with often, Kuan Yin, is here, inviting you to find some compassion for yourself and your sensing. She's reminding us that we can really let go of old stories of who we are and how we are. For, as Daniela said earlier, the more we tune into our divine channel and practice channeling, we actually change who we are. We find that flexibility to adopt a new personality or to simply be with Source as we are, divinely created. Just feeling that third eye recalibrating as all of our other chakras are supporting the third eye. That we can trust the visions that we see. We can trust that we too have the power to be a channel of clear light. Infusing gratitude for the ways that you have seen in your life, that you have made choices that have supported you on your path, that you have assisted others by reminding them of their power and their beauty and their magic. Feeling that gratitude. And then raising that ball of light up to your crown. And from your crown, really opening to receive from the highest frequency energies possible to you in this moment. At this point, the orb for me starts opening. Imagine it opening on the top to receive this divine energy and actually morphing so that it is a light that's just being channeled all the way down your spine through all these activated and awakened chakras. The energy just flowing through your spine, through your system. Feeling that you are so connected to Source, to God, to whatever you call the energy of oneness, of wholeness, of love. Feeling that flowing through you. It's removing some kind of cobwebs and doubts in the collective field of anyone who feels like they're not able to access Source directly on even a subconscious level. Ah, just like it's like to me, it's like a shower of light coming down. You. Beautiful. And then in my own personal practice, I just imagine reaching from this place of my crown and actually going higher and higher and higher is the way my guides always remind me, and go higher and higher and higher. And so I imagine rising up even from my crown and seeing how high of a frequency I can reach in this moment. Without trying or forcing, just like allowing your energy to raise up. Maybe you don't feel anything, maybe you start feeling it really rising up. All is perfect. So again, practice is what really allows us to have the focus and openness to really tune in this way. And then I usually end this part of the practice with my hands together and my heart, just in gratitude for it all. Gratitude for the gift of life. Gratitude for the ability to be able to practice these things, to have time in my day to take 5 minutes for my determination and self-will to choose myself and choose to raise my frequency. And any wishes that I have for my day unfolding that I would like to call in. Maybe just even something simple like grace and ease, or connection, or synchronicity. Great. And then for me personally, I love just to stay in this energy and meditate. Once I've gone through the process of raising my frequency, it's a chance to just really sit in the beauty of it and enjoy the beauty and be held by the beauty of this high frequency. And the truth is, this high frequency is you. You created it. So for today, when you're ready, just inviting you to slowly open your eyes and come back here. Yeah, so this is an example of how to raise your frequency. And again, sometimes for different people, it can be helpful to use, movements as well, or breath work, something that we can tune into as well.
That was beautiful, Allison. Thank you. The crown of my head is buzzing. It feels very similar to how I feel when I have opened up the Akashic records and I'm channeling. It's like I can feel it. So, yeah, so just so active and connected to these higher frequencies. So, thank you. And what a beautiful meditation for raising our frequency, enveloping every chakra with light, offering it like a little encouraging transmission. That was really beautiful and magical. Thank you. There's so many ways to raise our frequency. I'm just reading the chat. Thank you. That was beautiful. So calming. Thank you. Beautiful. My whole body heated up so much, all buzzing. Wow, Farah. Yeah, I'm feeling the buzzing. I was feeling inspired to share some other ways. I mean, that was a very profound way of raising our frequency. And there are so many ways. I personally work a lot with, well, I tune in and I allow my inner guidance to guide me. Sometimes working with the body is what is really supportive. And different ways we can work with the body, work with Pachamama is through sauna. When we sweat, we detox, we release, and this can also be purifying to the mind. It can help us release emotions. Another way for me is through exercise, through HIIT, the cardiovascular type of work. When the heart rate goes up, I find that it can be very clarifying for my energetic channels, for my meridians. Another way is connecting to Pachamama, connecting to the earth. Sometimes I like to lay on the earth and pray to her and attune to her frequency. I live here in the Sacred Valley of Peru, and a very common practice here is offerings to the earth. I like to do that by creating these really beautiful flower mandalas upon the earth and then imbuing them with my prayers. So a lot can be done with the physical body. People love to fast. That's another way. Breath work is another way. We can raise our frequency with the body. We can also raise our frequency with spirit, with God, with the divine, through prayer, through utilizing our imagination, like the way that Allison just guided us in that meditation. There is absolutely no limit to what we can imagine and make real through our consciousness. One of the themes of this immersion has been around how we have so much support from the divine, from our spirit guides, from our angels, yet they do not interfere with our human experience. They tend to offer their support when we ask for it. And I always think of that quote in the Bible that goes something along the lines of ask and you shall receive, knock and it will be opened, seek and you will find. So I'll give like a silly little example for today. I had like an insecure thought move through my mind, and I have relationships with many different guides. One of them is Archangel Michael. So I was like, Archangel Michael, can you help me with this thought? And I was like on a hike and then it was gone. And there's something about our asking as well as our trust and faith imbued in the ask that can really create magic for us. And when we're raising our frequency, it's also really important to remember that we cannot raise our frequency by rejecting or resisting any aspect of ourselves. An example of that would be if we are in the emotion of grief, of pain, and we want to raise our frequency. We could only do that by embracing, accepting, bringing love to the pain, to the grief, which often means allowing ourselves to fully enter into it with the spirit of love, with, I mean, for me, I do it with like my internal divine mother, very much holding the experience so that this internal divine mother can hold this pain, hold this grief. I can go into it, experience it somatically, and then through that, raise my frequency, but we can't raise our frequency in a real and sustainable way through bypassing any aspect of ourselves. Instead of bypassing it, what we do is we don't give it energy. So if we're caught in like a negative thought loop, or there's a very challenging emotion, sensation moving through us, we don't create stories and then project those stories onto reality. We simply accept, honor, embrace, and then bring them with us as we raise our frequency. I love what Allison, what you shared about gratitude too. I living in Peru, there's a very strong spirit of gratitude. And I feel like a lot of the Western worlds, there's been a lot of conditioning related to a more consumerist culture or more capitalism that has us more oriented towards wanting more and more and more and more instead of really rooting in gratitude for what already is. Gratitude is such a portal. It's a pathway to raising our frequency, like really taking in the beauty, the majesty of this existence, really like acknowledging, perceiving all of the blessings of our lives. So like that is a very clear and direct way to raise our frequency. And I also like to explore at times like whether what's contributing to my lower frequency. If it's like more mental, sometimes I'll go into journaling or Akashic practice. If it's more emotional, I'll go into like somatic practice. But of course, everything at the end of the day is all interconnected. Alana, 4-4 here on 4-4. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna see. Ooh, I'm turning into the chat. Okay, I see a direct message. I'm going to tune into that one later. Thank you. Farrellyn, yeah, sharing what resonated. Years ago, I would fall in love with what I could see someone else's potential was and not understanding why they didn't see it as well. They simply were not in that place in consciousness, no matter how sure I was. Yes, we must be mindful of our projections, no matter how positive they appear. So true. And it really is a delicate dance because Allison spoke to this tendency, which is also her gift. It's her gift. She perceives the highest possibility for someone. Like I know that that is a gift that she offers me both as a practitioner and as a sister, as a friend, perceiving the highest possibility, projecting that in my direction, and then encouraging the manifestation of that. And I feel that when we see our loved ones, the people that we're in relationship with, our spouses, when we see them in the highest light, we really encourage that part of themselves to to blossom. It's just important that we're not attached to that highest potential, or that our love, our acceptance, our wanting to be with them or relate with them is dependent upon them achieving that potential. So I have another question for you, Allison. That's okay. I'm not sure if you want to share anything on that, but the question that was coming through for me was what guidance you might have for somebody who is struggling to trust their intuition or is unsure about their intuition. It's like they think they're receiving guidance, but
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I think really doing something to raise your frequency before you get the guidance is very helpful. But also, just tuning into, do you trust yourself regularly? Because generally I find that people who don't trust their channel are people that are not really trusting themselves all the time. And so you can start by building trust with yourself because your channel is you, right? So as you start building trust with yourself, then you can start trusting what you're bringing in. And the other thing that I can tell when I get something that's true or something from my mind is that, sometimes we don't actually want to hear the things that come in. So sometimes my best insights are actually something that might rock the boat or that I have resistance to in a mental way. Whereas things that come from my mind, it's almost like there's stories that are justifying or adding credence to something I want to be true. And so, it can be, usually if I'm tuning into something, it's because I'm asking for some clarity over something that my mind maybe wants or a situation that's happening. And so the mind to me is a much more like chattery. It's kind of like, oh yeah, you could do that. Like, that's a great idea. Like, oh my God, all these things could happen. Like, I have all these ideas. Like, my mind is a bit more like a valley girl, full of ideas, but not like very fluffy, right? And I'm like, oh gosh. Whereas I feel like spirit, when I'm really channeling, or I'm even feeling a being, it's like something gets quieter and slower and softer. So something starts really coming into a state of presence, and then I just know. right? And so if you're trying to tune into something and you feel like it's like coming quickly with all these things, then it's usually not actually accurate insight. Whereas if you're really tuning in, and again, you give that moment, you've already raised your frequency and you give that moment a pause, and then something comes in and you see it more as, something that's maybe a bit challenging to your ego or something that you hadn't thought of from your mental state, then it's more likely to be true. For me, also, I can tell if I'm channeling like a different being, for example, because it's almost like the weather changes. So, again, as you become more confident and practiced with accessing your channel, you can start to really feel the differences in subtle energy. For example, I don't know if anyone could feel when Kuan Yin really kind of stepped forward in the meditation and took everything to the next level, but it was like almost like the frequency of the entire thing just shifted. Like she stepped in and it was like, woo. So, you can just start telling over time. And again, if you're like, I couldn't tell, or what is she talking about? Remember that all of this takes practice. Like our mind is super neuroplastic, and whatever we focus on grows. So if you're like, oh, I want to learn 5 languages, you can. Maybe it's difficult in the beginning, but it's totally possible. And for anything, there's a growth edge, right? And so it feels really uncomfortable. You're going to reach all of this pushback. I can't do this. The mind is going to shout in all these directions. But actually, as you practice it, you can. And another way to become more sensitive to energy so you can tell the difference is your lifestyle. And so again, as Daniela was saying, with like sweating and exercising and doing all these things, also the type of food you choose to eat and, the other people you hang out with, these all affect you. Like we're such, multidimensional beings, and a big part of that dimension is Earth. So, I think this again, it really helped me too, to choose not just the highest potentials, but actually to be grounded in my body, was making choices for myself on all of the levels that supported my well-being. And, so that, yeah, that's kind of, different ways to tell, but mostly it's around the frequency of what it is. And I'll just say one more thing. And the other thing is too, it's funny because sometimes also I'll find like as a friend, so people think, oh, you're really psychic. So, all the time you just must be really tuned in. But I've noticed like as a friend, if someone asks me something and I just respond without actually taking a moment to tune in, that it's not really truth that's coming through. It can be cute and sweet. And it's just like my personality, because we all have these personalities. And, my personality tends to be caring, but almost to the point of concern for other people. And so actually, if I just respond without like taking a moment to tune in and like, oh, let me feel into that. I'm just like come off the cuff from my mind. It will be a bit more like worried. And so you can kind of identify parts of your personality. If you care a lot, then you might be more concerned. If you are, more like worried about releasing control, then it might be about establishing control. And that could be for yourself or for others. So also as we start tuning into our own specific traits without judgment, because we all have different aspects, otherwise we wouldn't still be on this plane. We would just rainbow light out of here, right? But we still have these personal imprints in our lives. So if we can identify what those are, then we can also tell when we're channeling how much of that personality is coming through, or is it more of something that we wouldn't really naturally find ourselves saying, but it just feels like a deep truth.
Years into my Akashic practice, I can't tell you how convinced I get. I'm like, oh, I can just, tune in a moment. Yet there is a difference when I create the sacred container by saying my Akashic prayer, establishing my channel, and then receiving insight, guidance, energy from there. Because while it can like arise at will, it is less susceptible to any sort of interference from my personality, from my desires or attachments or emotions when I create that sacred container and make it so by imbuing the prayer with all of my attention. And you really can discern between the mind and your intuition, because intuition comes from source, comes from spirit, comes from God, comes from your higher self, your soul, and it holds a frequency of love, of possibility, of peace. It has absolutely no judgment, fear, or resistance to any timeline. I know that we were talking about the timelines earlier, but from the perspective of spirit, all timelines, all possibilities serve. And it's interesting to like live this. I know that I've witnessed this in people that I mentor and in myself, that sometimes it feels like maybe I'm choosing like the lower timeline for a little bit. And it's like, oh man. And then that lower timeline like catapults you into this way higher timeline. And you realize, like, oh, I actually needed to choose that route of what may feel like karma, of what may feel like intensity, to receive this expansion, this elevation of consciousness to transform. So, when we are perceiving anything through our channels, it comes with, for me, it feels like an energy of like, no matter what, all is well. Our channel can make anything and everything okay. I'm going to share a little example for me of something that happened within my first month of developing my Akashic practice. I had been holding on to like a big wound, a lot of grief over the fact that one of my best friends, my college roommate, she committed suicide. And she had come to visit me. I was living in LA at the time. She had come to visit me in LA before she told me she wasn't doing well. Like she was having mental health challenges. She came to visit me in LA. She stayed for a month. After a month, she was like, "Can I stay with you for longer? Like I'm really having a hard time and I like being here with you." And at the time I was going through my things. This was like many years ago. And it just felt like a lot. So I was like, no, I think it's better that you go back to Florida for now. So she went back to Florida and she killed herself. And it was a huge like trauma for me. I was so sad. I was in so much pain, so much guilt, so much shame, so much like what if, so much of like those ideas of like I chose the lower timeline. Oh my God, can't believe she's gone. Like I feel like this is my fault. It was intense. And this was lingering in my field for years. But as soon as I developed my channel, like as soon as I started accessing divine guidance, I didn't even ask about her. It came through. It was like basically like, I want you to know that you've been holding this grief. You've been holding this pain. You've been holding this trauma for years. I was shown one way in which it was affecting me, which was that I had moved to Los Angeles and I wasn't creating really close, intimate friendships with other women because I was scared because of the pain of having lost like one of my best female friends. So I saw that and I was like, whoa, I didn't even know I was doing that. It was just so in my unconscious, was not even aware till my channel showed me. And then my channel showed me, my channel showed me her. And she came to me and she said, she was like, Daniela, do you remember that Halloween party we went to in college? And I took a little bit of psychedelic mushrooms and I was not having a good time and I was having a bad trip. And me and you and our other friend had come together. And I told you two, I was like, I'm not having a good time. I'm having a bad trip. I'm going to go home. And you two were like, okay, bye. I'll see you tomorrow. And then I think we went out to like brunch the next morning. And she was like, basically, that's what happened. I like incarnated onto Earth. I wasn't having a good time and I wanted to leave. And now that I left, like I'm one with spirit. I'm one with God. I've done so much healing. I'm feeling so good. I'm enjoying this experience so much. And I want you to know that there's nothing inherently tragic or bad about suicide. And this whole time I had just been, I mean, I've been a human my whole life, and I had been so conditioned by like Christian conditioning that I really, truly, there was no part of me that could have thought like suicide is okay. There's nothing wrong with suicide. Like that wasn't even because I was conditioned. And then that came through, and I felt how okay she was. And then she showed me how her suicide appeared to be a lower timeline because, I mean, we lost her. Like it was so painful for our whole friend group. Our whole friends group was devastated. Her mother, I spent probably 2 years on the phone with her mother. Every week she would call me like agonizing pain. How could this happen? Trying to make sense of it. Like, so I was in that, like, wow, this caused a lot of pain. And then she showed me how it cracked all of our hearts open. She showed me, she was like, our entire friend group had a spiritual awakening because of my suicide. My mom had a spiritual awakening because of my suicide. Each and every one of you had your hearts so broken that it broke open. And she was like, each and every one of you is now more compassionate and more connected to the our hearts of other human beings than you ever would have been had this never had happened. And I was like, whoa, she's right. Because in experiencing the loss of her and in recognizing that in that moment when she asked for my support, I like turned her down. There's something about like really facing that broke my heart open and made me so much more compassionate. And I feel like I was very compassionate as a child, but over time I shut it down a bit because with that compassion, with that empathy, it's a lot to feel. It's a lot to feel. And without the capacity to hold the pain of humanity, everything that comes with empathy, while imbuing it with so much divine love, with this knowing that everything is divinely orchestrated, everything is okay. Like if we're not rooted in that, then we can't feel all the pain. We're naturally going to shut off to it. I had shut off to it because I didn't have a connection, a relationship with God at that time. And that experience, it really brought me to my knees. It did catalyze a huge spiritual opening. And I see that also in our entire friend group. Like we all transformed as a result of that. So that is the nature of like divine truth. It truly reveals, it gets us out of human conditioning, and human conditioning creates a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering for us. Not to say that we're not all going to, experience pain and suffering in this human experience. We're not going to transcend that through our relationship with God, but we're going to hold it differently. And it's going to be a very different perspective when we're seeing it from a higher perspective. In a higher perspective, we cannot maintain guilt. We cannot maintain shame. We cannot maintain resentment. We cannot maintain blame. Stories of victimhood completely dissolve. Stories of like, that person's a villain completely dissolve. This shouldn't have happened. That dissolves. That's bad. That's wrong. That dissolves. Because we can see the divine orchestration inherent within all of it. And then through seeing that, we can truly receive everything for the gift that it is, and we can open ourselves to life. Like me, through the trauma of that suicide, I had closed myself. I wasn't letting women in close. I had moved to a new city and I was kind of holding my girlfriends a little bit far away because I was afraid of that pain. I didn't even realize I was doing that, completely unconscious, literally had no idea. But there are so many ways in which life closes our hearts over time, and we start to build this like protective wall and get a little defensive and hold people away and hold experiences away and even hold our own emotions away. Our divine channels equip us to stay open, knowing that there will be sensation, like Allison talked about, it will be intense at times, yet we can handle it. And there's the gift inherent within it. And we're no longer susceptible to the human stories, which are not inherent divine truth, that create like suffering and shame and resentment and all the things that keep us closed. Hmm. Tuning into the chat, my dear Carmen. Hi, Carmen. I've been thinking of you so much. Um, Allison, I so appreciate your voice, your gifts, and offering for sure, and your humor and the realness with which you share. Yes, I love your realness, Allison. Thank you so much. I feel happy and inspired listening to you. Yay. Ooh, Farah asks, why do I close my eyes when channeling? I noticed you did several times too, Daniela. Allison, do you close your eyes when channeling?
Sometimes. Yeah, I feel like sometimes, when we close our eyes, it just cuts out so much sensation, right? In terms of sensation again. But we're not really seeing, when we our eyes open, there's so much to look at, focus on, and tune into. When we close our eyes, it's kind of easier for many people. That's why most people also close their eyes when they're meditating, to really tune in to your inner world. So I think at least for the moment when you're focusing, it can be really helpful to close your eyes. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I feel like I close my eyes because I'm tuning into like, they call it the sixth sense. And then when my eyes are open, there's a sense of sight. So my energy, my focus is going there. This way I can call in all of my perceptive awareness and bring it into the sixth sense instead of the seeing sight sense. Mm. Trista, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, you just answered a question I didn't finish typing in the most perfect way. I'm glad, Jim, and I'm happy that you're here. It's been amazing to have you for this immersion. Mm. I'm curious if any of you have any specific questions. I'm feeling inspired to open it up to a Q&A. Thank you for the heart, Alana. Dave. Hi, Dave. Let me, I'm gonna can you, okay, there we go.
Hi, you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Great, great. Now I had a question about the vortex healing. Is the Lucia light part of that uh, healing process?
Oh yeah, great question. So not exactly, no. So the Lucia Light is another technology, is the main technology that I work with. And vortex healing is completely different. It's like a type of energy healing. So if you haven't heard of the Lucia Light, it's basically a tool that can actually help you access your intuition. You simply close your eyes and lay underneath it, and it uses solid and flickering light. And the light itself actually really activates your third eye and takes your whole body into your nervous system into a state of deep relaxation. And so that's a tool that I work with, but I usually do vortex healing for the person while they're in the experience of the Lucia Light. Did you hear about this from Lucia Light?
Yeah, through Andrew Bartzis. I think you were on there, and I've actually experienced it. And it's just such an amazing technology. It's a clear bulb, with lots of facets, yet your mind, with your eyes closed, sees all these images and colors and shapes. And, I want to know more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, yeah, if you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to set up a call with you for sure to go in deeper. But basically, anyone else who's interested, I can drop the website in the link here. It's Lucia Light Experience. akashicmetamorphosis.com, and it is a really incredible tool. So, as we imagined and felt the white light coming in through our crown, physical light is actually such an incredible tool to work with. And so another reason to get up in the morning and with the morning light is that as we receive light, we can really receive energy codes through light. And the sun is gifting us with these codes every single day. And so sometimes we hide out inside of our house or just have the computer screen, but actually the sunlight is so nourishing for our systems. And another version of that light that can really take us to different states of consciousness is the Lucia, because it uses a central halogen bulb, which really creates a wide spectrum of light that's very similar to the sun. And then the flickering frequencies actually start inviting your brain waves to go into different states. And so it depends on what program and your intention for working with it. But yeah, as you said, Dave, you can really start seeing beautiful colors and patterns. And a lot of people use it also as a way to access intuition, their guides, to receive knowledge and things like that. So I would say the Lucia is another tool that we can work with to raise our frequency and also activate our third eye and really work with our nervous system too. So as I mentioned earlier, it's like I had a lot of nervous system issue, like imbalances, I guess you'd say, earlier on from a lot of like a very insecure situation when I was growing up. And so the Lucia light really helped me stabilize my system so that I could actually channel on a much deeper level and from a place outside of fear. But yeah, thanks so much for asking.
Thanks for the answer. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Allison. Allison, if you want to, yeah, share that link in here, and then anybody who's interested in the Lucia Light, I'll be sharing the link in the send out email with the replay. So look out for it later tonight. I'll be sharing that link. It's so cool that we have so many different ways to support us, like so many different ways. Allison's really into the Lucia Light. It's amazing. It's such a unique experience. Maybe we can share in the send out email. Oh, there you go. There's the link. Thank you, Allison. Yeah, it's all there. All the support we could need for everything. So Brenda asks, can I listen to meditations later with the same results? Yes, absolutely. The energetic transmissions and the intentions, they transcend time and space. So as long as you listen to the meditation in a state of being where you are receptive, where you're present, where you're not distracted, you can absolutely receive all the same energetic transmissions. It's equally as powerful because it's not dependent upon time or space. I have a question about your past on pharmaceuticals for depression and anxiety. Does it interfere with raising frequency and third eye pineal gland? So when I took pharmaceuticals, I was very young. I was in my late teens, and I did not have a very solid, secure relationship with God. And because I didn't have that relationship, I wasn't connected to the power of consciousness. So for me personally, when I took pharmaceuticals, I stopped dreaming. I completely lost connection to my psychic gifts. I had been really psychic my entire life, and that shut down for me like entirely. And I realized that in losing connection to my psychic gifts, I also lost connection to my empathy and my compassion. I I just felt like it changed me for the worse. And it also put me in like it put me in a different state. I feel like I had been really depressed my entire life. And then taking the pharmaceuticals, I was very happy and cheerful. So it had like a lot of negative implications, but it also had some positive ones in the sense that it showed me what it was like to have a lot of serotonin in my brain and to feel a lot of happiness. And I hadn't felt that before. I think that I mean, I would not take pharmaceuticals again. But I think that we can basically, I feel like we can work with our consciousness, with the power of our consciousness, with whatever it is that we are consuming and taking in, and like direct it in a way that serves us. Hmm. Diane says, I especially enjoyed your morning Golden Globe practice. Allison, do you want to share on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to jump in for a second. So yeah, in terms of working with medications, my personal take on it is that they can be really helpful as an emergency, right? So if it's really to the point that it's a decision, you're having suicidal ideation and things like that, that can just mean that really there's such an intense imbalance that something needs to shift, right? But the problem is, using it enough to, once you start working with it, then your system gets addicted to it. So that's why there's a lot of natural alternatives like plant medicines that if you're at that level of intensity where you're just really unable to cope, then maybe working with a plant medicine with a really specific guide that you feel safe with can actually really help you shift. And because the main thing that I found with working with clients over the years with serious depression and anxiety is there's a root, right? So although we're experiencing the symptoms of it, usually when we go down into the root of where the symptoms are coming from, there's something that feels like it's so overwhelming, we can't allow it to exist in our life, right? And so because that intensity feels so overwhelming, it just feels like it would be easier to leave or ignore it or push it away. And that's a lot of the ways that our society has been regulated, is by, really reinforcing that belief that we can just take something and all of our issues will go away, instead of, doing that deeper somatic work of actually tuning in to what it is. And so I definitely think that it can affect your raising your frequency and your third eye and pineal gland, because ultimately we can't just bypass the intensity that we're experiencing, And I also had experience in my personal life with that. When my dad passed away, I went into a real state of shock. And I think that's not really talked about that much in terms of death and passing on, of what can happen after someone you're really close to passes away. And some people have an inability to function. And they really wanted to put me on pharmaceuticals because I was just spaced out. I couldn't really respond to life in the same way. I felt like this huge disconnect. And I, on a spiritual level, my spirit was just like, no, I cannot. And so and as a result, I suffered for a long time. And actually for me at that point, the Lucia light was the thing that shattered that layer of disconnection and allowed me to come back to my heart and my soul. So I would say that if you or anyone you know of is on pharmaceuticals or working with that energy, then I think, or considering it, that it's really important to see that as again, a gift, right? A wake-up call to say that there's something deeper in our system that really wants acknowledgement. And it could be, even sometimes it's something that happened to us when we were really young that we don't even remember. So it might not, it could be buried trauma, but that to me, it's like there's something there. And it also could be that the environment and lifestyle that we're choosing is just not resonant, right? And so again, we can take pharmaceuticals, or, what's the difference between, in my opinion, between pharmaceuticals or, doing cocaine or whatever it is to wipe away that feeling where everything's not good enough, I can't live like this, but I can pick something to help me live like this. It's remember that when the golden orb was in your solar plexus, you have the choice of how you want to live this life. And so really tuning back into that choice, and then saying, okay, because I have that choice, I also have the choice that I can really do that deep work And even though, you know, life might say like, oh, you don't have time for that, or you have this job, you can't let that go. How are you going to survive? How are your finances going to work out? That's really that moment that is that leap of faith of saying like, okay, I mean, otherwise I'm just, you know, on the hamster wheel, wasting time, feeling so unhappy. If I actually take that leap of faith right now, right, to look at this in a much deeper way, then everything is going to change for the better forever, you know. And if I don't, you're just putting it off and actually then getting your body used to it, and then it is really difficult when you're doing that to raise your frequency. And again, it's totally understandable, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And to me, it's an invitation for some really, really deep work if you're ready to go for it.
I was clapping while you were sharing. Yes. Thank you, Allison. There was something else that was coming through when you were sharing, which was around how the development of our divine channel, of our psychic intuitive gifts, is related to the development of our sixth sense. It's a very subtle sense. It requires deep feeling. And we've developed this society that has an aversion to feeling. A lot of people, like it's very common in our society, if you have a headache, like pop an ibuprofen. Birth, which is very painful, is like, I mean, highly, yeah, people are put on, I mean, it becomes like a medicated, hospitalized experience so that we don't have to feel that pain. And when people are in emotional pain, it's very common to like seek distractions. We haven't created a society of deep feeling, which is our access point to the deep sensing, which I feel impedes us from developing our psychic intuitive gifts. We have to have the capacity to feel, to open our senses so much that we are sensing multidimensionally. Do you have any more shares for us, Allison? Anything else you're like intuitively feeling inspired to share with the group?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would want to share. Oh, we have a question, I think. Let's do that first. Tarek?
I am Tarek. I am trying to unmute you, and please let me know
Hello.
if I. Oh, hey.
Hi. Thank you very much
Hi.
for taking my question. Is it okay if it's like a personal experience related to intuition? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you for your work, all of you. I appreciate that. I feel I've been in my journey. I could like in level step into my divine intuition or channel for a while, but I've had some experiences recently, the last couple of months, where I felt some change shifted, and I was like feeling very attuned and euphoric in my experience, and things shifted in my perception to my intuition and guidance, and until I understood I'm going through recalibration time, I got into a little bit fear, and recently I'm feeling this fog around my intuition, and it's kind of hurting me sometimes, like, and it's difficult to make decisions. That was part of like healing, but I got into this fear, I think, like a little bit shock, and I'm feeling it's a little bit difficult for me to come back to that way of alignment that I used to feel. And yeah, I felt just called to share that. If there's any insights or messages that would come through, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Allison, do you want to share or would you like me to share?
Um, Either way, yeah. Why don't you start and then I can follow up. So, I have a few insights.
Okay. I'm going to take a moment to drop in. So I got like a really cute visual just now, and it was a visual of our divine channel, like the channel originating from the crown of our head, um, and the channel from like our third eye, and it connecting to the divine. And then I saw this visual of it being under construction and these little like adorable spirit guides upgrading it, upgrading like the road, so to speak, from your consciousness to the divine. And while it's under construction, it felt like a time of tuning into different parts of yourself. And just because it may not be a time of what you might call heightened intuition or lots of joy, excitement, passion, synchronicity, flow, it doesn't mean it's not a valuable time where you're not learning, growing, evolving, expanding your consciousness. And the more that you can embrace this season and work with it, accept where you're at, it's almost like a kind of like get comfortable with it. Like, this is okay that I'm having this experience, then the more readily available you become for other experiences, whether it's really feeling the connection to your intuition or feeling a lot of high frequency energy circulating through you, having days where you feel excited and enthusiastic for life. The way that I was seeing it was like it's like a season. And just like the winter on the earth allows everything to replenish itself. Like I remember reading on social media about a study done where they had, I don't remember exactly what was shared, but it was something along the lines of they injected trees with something that had them not lose their leaves in the winter. And because they didn't go through that process of like death and rebirth and renewal, they died completely. Like the trees just died completely. And so I was seeing it as a season. And in this human experience, we are part of Pachamama. We are extensions of the earth. We are created by her. And in many ways, we reflect her. So just like our moods, our emotions change, just like the weather, we have sunny days, we have cloudy days. We also are susceptible to internal seasons, and they all have their value. They are all necessary. That's why they're occurring. And we can make them more enjoyable when we accept them. So I was seeing the visual of like, okay, sunny days, warmth is amazing, but if we're in a season of winter, maybe like cozying up inside with like a mug of hot chocolate and like a movie. So whatever your way of enjoying the different season is, going into that. I know that when I'm like super low vibe and I just don't see the way like out of it, sometimes I'll just watch a movie or just do something mindless to like find ways to really be at peace with wherever I'm at, with whatever is moving through. Do you want to? I'm curious what's coming through for you, Allison, around Tarek's question.
Yeah, for sure. So that's really beautiful what you said, and it definitely resonates. I think for me, what I saw for you, Tarek, was the nervous system. It just felt like there's a lot of things that are changing in your life on some level, and that there's a kind of disease, like a uncomfortability, not like an actual, certain disease, but like a discomfort in your system and your nervous system around it. It feels like before you were able to, like things were more plateaued. And so you're able to accept things more. And right now it's kind of as Daniela said, this leveling up process. I see that as well. But it's also that there needs to be much more support for your system during this time. So from my perspective, what I saw was really, really more conscious, relaxing, like, yeah, it's very similar, but I think what I would recommend would be more of like doing sound healings or, yeah, anything like spending time in nature and really meditating, to allow things to settle in, and then also start journaling about what is changing and why it's unsettling. Because when I tune into it, it's like this aspect of yourself, as you're changing or things are changing around you. It feels like there's some things happening with a few people that are close to you that on some level are a bit disturbing. And so as those are changing, there's this unsettling in the system, like, is this safe? I don't even know it's safe anymore. And with that, there's just a need to reground yourself into your own self-belief and trust. And then when you settle that more, your channel's there. It's like the way I saw it was like, there's nothing like wrong with your channel or your inability to tune in. It's just that when you're shifting and this part of you is like not ready to let go. So it's maybe making peace with the part of yourself that's ready to no longer be here, right? Then as you let go of that, you will actually find much more ability to tune back in. And then you'll be like, oh, wow, it's even better than I expected. It's just this part of me need to go. And to me, it feels around control also. Like there's a desire to control a certain situation that you feel like you're kind of losing control around. And so as you also surrender that and just kind of trust what's happening, that'll work. And I just saw you on the eclipse season. Exactly. So eclipse season is perfect for ripping these things apart, right? So things are changing on a deep level. So the more you can just surrender to the process, the easier it'll be.
Thank you, Tarek, for that question. So appreciate it. And I feel like this is like what you just shared, Allison, I feel is the perfect segue into sharing with you our offerings. Allison is so generously offering 50% off a Akashic session with her to everybody who's a part of this immersion. Do you want to speak to that, Allison? I'm going to send you all the details on how to book in the next email. So if you're interested in booking a session with her and experiencing her psychic intuitive gifts, then look out for that email.
Yeah, so I offer one-to-one sessions, and you can kind of choose if you would really rather focus on the intuitive part, the energy healing part, or we can do a mix, just a flow, depending how it's going. And so I really love, especially working with people that are having a specific moment in their life where they're needing a shift, or they're feeling really stuck. So we can start really looking into what's behind those patterns, or how we can transition into reinstating your frequency, or things along those lines. Or if you have any questions about, there's a lot of opportunity, different things coming up, and you don't know what to choose or how to deal with a changing situation, then it can be really supportive. Or if you're having a physical health issue and you want more support on the energetic level, to kind of tune in more of what could be supportive and how your mindset can really work with that imbalance, then I'm also here for that. And I also do support. One of my main roles that I offer intuitive support is actually with practitioners. So I run the Lucia Light community, and I offer support with practitioners as well. So also if you have a practice as a healer, or you would like to expand your practice, then I really love supporting that. And I have all kinds of ideas and insights around business and how to kind of get yourself out there, and tuning into what your limiting beliefs might be that could really be shifted in order to bring you into the role of support. So we need all hands on deck these days.
All hands on deck, we certainly do. I'm just tuning into the chat. Yay. Oh, wow. 2 a.m. there. Sweet dreams, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us. I highly recommend sessions with Allison. I personally love them. Sebastian, I see that you just shared a question. I want to let you all know that we're adding a bonus call. Yay. It's going to be Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. It's going to be an Akashic Q&A. So like Sebastian, this question that you just asked, bring it to the call on Tuesday. I'm going to be opening my Akashic channel and answering people's calls related to developing their divine channels. That's Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's also going to serve as an integration call and then a completion for this immersion. I also want to remind all of you about the scholarship opportunity. If you know that you're feeling called into Akashic Metamorphosis is my 8-month-long signature training in developing your divine channel, learning how to access and channel the Akashic records, and also utilizing your channel for personal healing, client sessions, and more. If you know that you are meant to be a part of it, and a scholarship would deeply help you to join, then I invite you to apply and to enter for the scholarship. I'll send another email about that either later today or tomorrow, but I love sharing this training. It is life-changing. I love this practice. It has served me so much, and I would love to welcome you into this container.
Yeah, and I would love to add to that, that remember, with money too, that what you invest in yourself comes back so many times. So even, if it's the time you spend and the money you spend to work with Daniela, it will really come back in so many ways that you can't even imagine. It's like if you're already feeling like, as you're listening to this, any kind of constraint about money, then remember that if you really feel that soul calling to do this, then choosing and sharing with the universe that you're investing in yourself and in your channel and in your development is actually going to give back to you more than you can ever imagine. So keep that in your heart and your mind as you feel into what you want to choose going forward, whether it's related to this situation or others, that what you choose is how you speak to the universe, right? So sending you all so much love. Thank you so much for having me today, Daniela. And it's really lovely tuning in with you all and feeling your beautiful energies.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you who have been present. I hope to see you on Tuesday. If you feel inspired to, you're welcome to unmute yourselves and say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Anna.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
Heather.
you.
I
Hi,
see you.
everyone.
Bye. Sarah, thank you for joining us again. Jim, Celeste, nice to see you again. Arena, Lorraine.
Gee. Whoops. Bye. Thank
Bye,
you. I
bye.
enjoyed it. Thank you. Love you,
Thanks,
Allison. Mwah.
Anna.
Wait,
You
that's
too.
happened? You recording Audi?
Hmm. Hmm.
You,
Love
Daniela.
you all.
Appreciate it.
Ooh, yeah, thank you, thank you. Hmm. Bye, everybody. Wishing you such a beautiful day or night, wherever you are. Thank you for being a part of this. I hope to see you on Tuesday. Thank you, Allison. Bye, my love.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.